All right, all right, all right. Let's give it a couple of minutes to sink over there. Yes, welcome back to another live on the channel where healing and spiritual growth are front and center. Yes, yes, yes. We are going to give this a few minutes for people to get the notifications and all that good stuff. And I see John. Yes, we are going to cover your testimony, a little bit of it in part one today. 'Cause like I told you, I did going through all of it, and I said, hey, it's going to have to be done in parts, probably 3 parts is what I'm looking at now. So we're going to go over the first two, and if we make it to the third story today, then we'll go ahead and dive a little bit into it. But we're just going to cover a couple of them because there's a lot of red flags in those stories. Hey, good afternoon, Advancing. Thank you for joining us. And I just want to, hey, how about everybody let's drop this down below while everybody's coming on in, things like that, where you're located. And you don't have to name the state, city, or whatever. You can just say, like, I'm in the United States, so we can see where everybody's tuning in from. Kind of get everybody acquainted in here. But yeah, a lot of red flags that we missed over. Oh gosh, we go through that. They call it the ruminating period at the beginning of the healing when you, yeah, from the Caribbean. Welcome, welcome. See, God got chosen empaths everywhere, everywhere, and He's waking people up That's why I say that often. He's waking people up from the narcissistic abuse everywhere, everywhere, every day, probably every hour when you stop and think about it. Every time somebody gets on there and starts Googling their partner's behavior, it's amazing. It's amazing, amazing, amazing. And so as we go through that self-reflection, okay, is what it is. That rumination is that self-reflection. So as God is trying to, renew the mind, help us remember these red flags, because like I say often, the farther along you get in the spiritual awakening and things like that, it's all part of His preparation. He's preparing you to be able to fight the good fight. Okay, the spiritual battle. All right, remember, yeah, because like I say often, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. We're wrestling against the spiritual wickedness in high places. And so these red flags are very common. And of course, they're the circumstances that they occur in are going to be different. This is why we don't have a one size fits all, like I say, also, because everybody's situation is unique. And we remember as we go through that self reflection process, we start remembering all of the little small detail that we're like, wait a minute, that's why. And then we realize that's why it didn't sit right with us, like how it stood out, one of the red flags of abuse. And it's usually, most of it is, it's all about power and control with these abusers. And it's mind blowing, right? Speaking of, y'all, we now have a T-shirt every day of Cognitive Dissonance Day to go with the mug. Oh, because I'm telling you, every day something new, something new. But let's dive into this, shall we? Okay. All right. And this is John's testimony, and he's shared a lot of things. And wow, it doesn't surprise me anymore, though. Really, it doesn't. So we're going to cover the first one that he was able to go backwards a little bit and start connecting some dots. And then we're gonna, like I said at the very beginning, we're gonna cover a few because there's a lot to unpack in all of this. And then we'll have a part 2 and probably a part 3. So, all right, this one is where John was in his 5th year of college, okay, and he was on campus, the dormitory, and things like that. And he had finally, okay, he was only 22 at that time. He was a 2nd year senior in college, okay, and he finally got out of the freshman dorm he had been in for 4 years, all right, and I can understand why you kept that corner room as long as you could, though. I definitely get that. So you get a senior dorm room, and you were excited because they had told you were going to get a foreign exchange student, and that is always exciting. We love interacting with people of different backgrounds and learning about their cultures and just what they're into and things like that. Because it's wonderful because that we learn from other people how God just moves so uniquely different in everyone. All right. But what happened was just a couple of weeks before they had switched to a different person. So now he's getting a different roommate than who they originally told him he was getting. And yes, this one was a strange one, but definitely a narcissistic abuser. Definitely. All right. So John noticed the one weird sign, okay, was that he was in his later 20s and already had a master's degree. And yeah, this is very common. He had a master's degree in psychology. And I'm here to tell you all that a lot of narcissistic abusers do get degrees in psychology because they want to try and learn how to become more deceitful, more manipulative. All right, so they'll go through courses and things like that and but the good news is there's empaths who also get degrees, okay, in psychology or related field, because that way we can learn to spot them quicker. Okay, there's your difference between the two. And that's why that discernment is so important, because they'll use that psychology degree, whatever they learned about psychology, all right, they'll use it to abuse. A lot of them do it. And I will, yes, we'll dive more into that perhaps in another video down the road, but that's just some food for thought right there. And so okay, and John initially had a home number, okay, and this new roommate got a hold of that, obviously, because the school information was available to people who were going to be sharing a room. And this person left a voicemail on John's home machine. And John said it was weird because he almost sounded like he had a professional radio voice. Okay. And it was like, "Hi, this is so and so. This message is for John. I'm going to be your roommate and got your information. I wanted to speak to you before we get to school so we can discuss the things prior to such as what the person will bring and so forth." See, this is a very subtle tactic that they use to try and make you think, oh, okay, this person wants to compromise and this person's trying to make an effort to get along, things like that. But that's just very subtle clue right there. Okay, so that's where you want to test the spirit, be like, okay. And so John thought initially, again, wow, it's like he's got someone who gets it, like out of a mutual respect kind of thing. And while between two genuine people that would be, when it comes to dealing with a narcissistic abuser, see, this is why we say we got to be careful when asking what narcissists say, because they do say the same things everybody else does. It's just all about that discernment. And of course, they always mean the opposite of what they say. That's bottom line. So, but he did think back that it was very strange that a person of that age would be wanting to stay in a dorm room. Well, that's we don't really know the circumstances behind that. So that's not a red flag. That's just all about, perhaps he, just maybe that's what he preferred, but a lot of time when it comes to a narcissistic abuser, if he had somewhere else he could have been staying, he would choose the dormitory, because again, that's where he can get the most attention. So it's there's a lot of factors that can go into that. Okay, and okay, and so John comes in to add. See, this is why I knew we were going to have to break it down, because as we cover some other things, we're going to come to. Okay, all right, bigger. Okay, it was bigger than okay, so the new room was bigger. It was okay, it had more. Okay, the next one. Okay, it was okay. I got it. And he wouldn't be surprised if he also took it to try to figure out his own oh, the psychology. Pardon me. Oh, I always appreciate a chuckle. That's a good point. That's a good point. If they want to try to figure out his own insanity, well, that could be. And then he says, "Yes, okay, yeah." But looking back, makes sense. Okay, yeah, it was a test of sorts. Absolutely correct. When he left that message trying to get you to think that, okay, the two of you might be able to work, that mutual respect. It was, yeah, that was a very subtle test. So good job. Very good. Shrewd observation. Okay, that's a good one. Okay, the original freshman dorms had the bigger rooms. Oh, which is why I like that. Okay, I gotcha. I gotcha. Okay. So we got that backwards. Okay. Well, hey, it is what it is, right? I've never stayed in a dorm room. I've seen them, but I get where you're coming from. Okay, so after that, okay, then John said that particular year, he and his family, I'm taking that to be you and your family, John, right? We're planning to go on vacation to visit your brother. And so he was having a ceremony, and it was, of course, that's very important always. All right, so you went to, okay, so John went to school early to set things up, okay, to set his, things up in the room. All right, and very few people go that early. So as soon as they got there, we're setting up the room. He had a carpet that he had in the old room, and it was very close in size to the room that he now had, but one corner was slightly off on one wall. And the reason that he's sharing it is just to hang in there, because there's something that this new roommate did that ties into all of this. Okay, because it's just one of those incidents that happen. Okay. Okay, yes, his brother. Okay. Yep, school. Okay. Oh, Kalamazoo, right? If I said that right, okay. So that carpet had one corner that was a little off. No, not a big deal, really. All right. So this new guy shows up in the room at the very moment that they were done setting up and ready to head out, okay, to on their trip. And the timing was weird. That's the one thing we all start to realize when we're dealing with narcissistic abusers, is that they do have this uncanny sense somehow of timing. But it's through, I want y'all to understand that it's through that spiritual energy transfer. Okay, remember, because it's that, evil and good, it's always battling out. So somehow it just, the devil and this weirdo, that evil spirit was able to tell him that's how it works. It's not a coincidence either, but it is through spirit, not because if you never met this person before, it's not necessarily through any kind of spyware or bugging device or anything like that. It's the cosmic energy. Okay, that's how that happens. But that's the one thing, the timing. We always notice that. All right, so this new guy introduces himself, and then John finds out that he likes to work out and goes to the gym and is a health nut. No big deal. Hey, that's all good, because John himself also is into some of the same thing. So yeah, health as well. There you go. But anyway, John's dad pointed out to this new guy that the tiny little spot on the carpet, that little piece that was slightly off, okay? And he told this new guy, "Oh, we didn't have time right now, but since you'll be staying here, if that little tiny piece of carpet sticking up by the wall bothers you before John gets back, you can simply go down to the dormitory front desk, ask for a utility knife, and cut that little piece out. this new guy's response was, "That's not my specialty." I mean, and I can imagine the tone, John. Yeah, I can imagine the tone because it probably very snotty, and because that's how they do it. They're like, "What? Okay." Alright, so that was, a very common kind of response, but they just how they say it. Now, I want y'all to know that, empaths also will admit, "Hey, that's not my area of expertise," or whatever, but it's all about the difference in tone, okay? But although something like that really is not that complicated to go down there and ask for, I mean, really, it just because this guy, so that was definitely something that I could see why that stood out because it's like, "Wait a minute." Alright? And so this new guy also asked, okay, since John had bought the answering machine. Okay, y'all, hang in there. This gets really bizarre here in a minute. I was like, whoa. Okay. All right. So this new guy asked John if he could record the message. Okay. Seemed harmless, right? And so John's like, "Sure, yeah, you're gonna be here for a few days anyway, so, like, go ahead," right? So, now for the entire trip, so John and his family take off, and they go on their trip. This new guy is now at the dorm room with the voice recorder, okay, the voice machine, alright? So while John was at that trip, he was happy, but he kept getting a weird vibe. See, that's that intuition, okay, the weird vibe. He's like, he didn't feel good. He just kept telling himself, see, here's where the cognitive dissonance starts to play on every time, when something like this happens to us until we finally, God wakes us up. Alright, so and he was kept telling himself, "Nah, it will be okay. Maybe you're just trying to be funny and isn't good at it." That's a good one. Alright, but who knows? But he kept having that feeling like something was off. That's the one thing we all failed to pay attention to early on. We pay attention to it now. Oh, yeah. Alright, so John gets back to the room, alright, and there's a message for some girl on the phone. And she literally sounded frantic and almost scared. And she was saying something about a little project apparently that her and the roommate were supposed to be working on together. And she was just letting him know it took longer than expected due to a power outage. And at the end of the message, she said, "So I won't get it done 100% on time." And somehow, through that spiritual energy transfer again, this new guy, all right, just happens to walk in at that particular moment. And under his breath, he muttered, "Oh, yes, you will." Huh. Okay, so where you could see where this new guy's trying to see, okay, what kind of control he can get over others. Okay, that's all part of it. All right, so yes, it was very strange. Okay, the tone. Yeah, I'm telling you, it really is all about the tone, how they say, definitely. All right, so that was strange, but you caught that for a reason. All right, for him, because obviously he's got this girl under his thumb on something, right? So he happened to walk in and showed up right as we were leaving for your brother's event, way earlier, and then walked in again 5 minutes when they got back. And we never and mind you, John and his family never told this guy exact time that they would be coming and going. And so that's why I wanted to clear that up and let y'all know that it's through that energy transfer. Okay, how they know. And it is very creepy. No doubt about that. It and so but you were picking up on very, very subtle clues and good ones, by the way. Very good one. So anyway, okay, it's at this time in John's life, he'd been listening to, some of those self-help thingies, the MLM stuff and all of that and stuff. All of us go through a season where we get interested in that for whatever reason until we realize a lot of it's scam. But anyway, right, so John gets Okay, so and the reason he mentioned this is because we're gonna touch on how cognitive dissonance plays, okay, to try and get us to dismiss what we're seeing or hearing. All right, and that's a lot of what goes on. Okay, and it was in 1996. Okay, so all right, 1996, right? Like not right. That's what I was saying. The technology, okay, back then wasn't nearly as advanced as it is now. Okay, so oh, you okay, having binoculars outside somewhere watching the room. Oh, or having someone else watch the room. Who knows? That's that. You know what? Those are all plausible scenarios as to how the spiritual energy transfer was letting this guy know at the exact moment when you were in, and in the exact moment when that message was being played. It's a number of things, but he could very well have had somebody there. We don't put anything past narcissistic abusers at this point. We really don't, because even though the technology was not, well, I mean, hey, hunches are not a bad thing, because it helps you to sort through and go, there's got to be, because there's always an explanation for something. Okay, that's why many of us never did believe in coincidence. We still don't. Okay, there's a reason for that, because but who knows? It could have been through either of those ways, because these people, remember, they got flying monkeys that will do whatever the narcissistic master abuser will tell them to do. They do. And so, that wouldn't surprise me if he had binoculars or someone else. It wouldn't surprise me. It's totally plausible. But so we're going to go on to the next thing this guy does. All right. So, and John was saying he was participating in some of those self-help thingies and stuff like that. One of the recommended things they always tell everybody is, you set that goal, right? So you and then get an image that goes along with, to put up an image that goes along with that goal. And that's fine. It works for a lot of people. It sure does. There's a little bit of that inspiration. Okay. So and there's a reason he shared this, because when he got to the room, he noticed a picture of a guy with a good physique in a Speedo, which was odd for a picture in a guy's room. Well, yay and nay, okay? Yay and nay. In this day and age, yeah, okay? But the picture, here's the clue right here. The picture resembled this new guy's physique, okay? So I will go ahead and tell you that, and John lets us know that this new guy looks somewhat like the guy that was in the picture. So he thought at first maybe it was just a goal. I know what it was is whoever that was in the picture, this narcissistic abuser was idealizing and trying to copy that image. Okay. He wanted to make himself look like that image on the wall. Okay, because in that was all that he was mirroring, that image. So he probably didn't really, to start with, when he came upon that, well, good looking, whatever, nice looking person. Okay, he probably envisioned and said, you know what, I'm going to copy this guy's image because I like it, right? That's what narcissistic abusers do. So he was copying that guy's image, right, as a way to impress, okay, because he himself was impressed by the image. So he wanted to take it and use it for himself to impress others. That's what narcissistic abusers do, okay, because they don't have their own self. They don't have self-identity. Okay, so they're always copying, and it could not necessarily just a person, but it can be through a celebrity photograph or whatever, and they want to change and alter their appearance to look just like who they're admiring. All right, that's what they do. Okay, yes, absolutely, John. Flying monkey, no doubt about it. Could have been. All right, so there's that. All right, so includes like, okay, so this new guy is mirroring and copying this photo. All right, so now when this narcissistic abuser and John first spoke, he had told him about his master's degree in psychology, and he said, and I'm gonna think I'm trying to pronounce this correctly, but I didn't even know what this was until you told me. Believe it or not. Yeah, I was like, oh, I hadn't heard of that. But it's a gerontology. Okay, was this new guy's special. Hang in there. We're gonna tell you what that is. Okay, and so because John asked him what he didn't know, because they didn't know at the time, and he said it was psychology of elderly people. Like, whoa, okay, not a bad thing or whatever, depending on, okay? So John asked this new guy what got him interested in that particular branch of study, and the abuser said, "Because I love the smell of old people." Okay, or he might have said something like he liked to smell old people. And so John, his immediate thought was, "Ooh, like I would never." John said he would never allow this man to be near his grandmother or any of his friends' grandparents, right? Exactly. You had the correct thought there, because that was wow. Okay, so in other words, he wasn't in that field for the right purposes. He was in that field to satisfy his own fetish, if you will. Oh, and creepy, 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 creepy indeed. So at some point, not too long after that, he the abuser just point blank asked John about the picture on the wall with the male guy in the Speedo. Okay, y'all, we're going to get ready to go into exactly one of the biggest tactics that narcissistic abusers will do to try to get, this is just one of the many ways they will try to instill or start an argument or try to it's crazy making. Okay, that's just all crazy making. So John, so the guy asked John, said, "John, when you first got here and saw that picture, what were you thinking?" And so John said nothing. And the guy pushes on, right? And says, "No, really, John, when you first saw that, what did you think?" And again, John said nothing. All right. And then the abuser goes on and keep asking, "Okay, no, really, what did you think?" John replied, "Nothing." And this is that circle, okay, that narcissistic abusers will do with conversation until they get a response. And if it's not a response that they were expecting or that they wanted, they will just they'll play dumb for one, or switch the subject or whatever. All right. So, and he said that circle, okay, of asking John what he thought and John saying nothing, it went on for probably like 4 to 5 minutes. That is classic, very classic. All right. And then, asked probably 20 to 30 times. All right. So then John changed his response to, "Well, and then the narcissistic abuser just kept talking right at him. Remember, narcissistic abusers talk at people, not with people. And a lot of times they try to talk over people, and they talk at them, okay, not with them. That's the other red flag that he picked up on right here. And so for the next 4 to 5 minutes, again, John kept answering, "Well, and this abuser still wouldn't stop. So John says, "Well, most people would associate a guy as putting up a nearly naked man on his wall as being, attracted to the same sex." And so John flat out asked this guy if he was. And then, so that kind of threw the abuser off guard. All right. That's exactly what happened. You threw him off guard with your just unexpected response. And okay, so what else do we have to add to this? Okay, John D, he pictured that he would go to the elderly homes and go around sniffing old people all day. Oh, ew. Really, John? Okay. That's not funny. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, so after John asked him if he was attracted to the same sex, and so the abuser comes back and says, "Now, why would you ask me that?" Okay, so now that tone, okay? again. And so John remembered vaguely that he was like, well, because you have seemingly been pushing to ask, pushing to ask that question. So tell me, he said, are you or are you not? And so the abuser's answer was the most bizarre one ever. Hang in there, all right? Fasten your seatbelt for this one. The abuser said, John, I like men, I like women, and I like pets. Okay, yes, that was very strange indeed. But unfortunately true with narcissistic abusers. Remember, because they are the evildoers. They do everything they're not supposed to be doing. That God, that God forbid. And because, well, exactly, John. I can understand why. Yeah, none of us would want that person around any of our elderly parents, grandparents, relatives, friends, whatever. No, exactly. Okay, so now, all right, again, much like his answer to the gerontology question, John was like, ew, okay, yeah, definitely. And so, although a little humor in this, John created a new phrase, specific to this abuser, that told people for the last 24 years that he briefly had a roommate that was trisexual. They would say, what? I said, well, try men, women, pets. Well, that's a good one. Okay, that's a good one. And so, like, you would only, you would have only seen on one of those TV shows. Yeah, I know, right? Okay, so yes, we're gonna move on now to the next incident. Okay, with some red flag things to watch out for. All right, so John also remembered a previous conversation with him about who would bring what. Remember, very back in the beginning when he left that voicemail on John's home voicemail about wanting to have that discussion about what to bring. Okay, so because John had gotten there so early, he didn't get a chance to bring the items. Like he was going to bring the TV and VCR, right? But that got forgotten about or whatever because you're getting there early, get ready to go on that trip. All right, so after that little discussion over the picture on the wall, the abuser turned around and asked John if he had ever watched porn. Okay, and he said no. Not really. And so the abuser, have you ever seen men on men? And that's the thing. Remember, these narcissistic abusers want to find out what you, okay, that this is their way of testing to find out, okay, what you're into and whether or not you identify as such. Basically he was testing to see how you identify. Okay, that's exactly what that was. And narcissistic abusers will do that. All right, yes, they'll do that because remember, they're trying to get little tidbits of information about you because they want to try to change whatever it is they're doing to whatever it is you're doing. All right, he was trying to get he was trying to get some information. All right, this is all part of that data gathering that they engaged in the very beginning. All right, so. All right. And John told him he didn't want to see any of that. All right. So he was going to bring the TV and the VCR in a few days, but after all of that talk, he made a mental checklist to no, don't bring that video equipment this weekend. And that was a good call. That was a very, very good call. So also on that first day and evening, they're both trying to walk out the door at the same time. And the abuser backs up and tells John, ladies first. Okay, that was an attempt at him trying to be funny, but it wasn't funny. All right. That's the thing, that he was being, well, you could say that's part of their mockery. Okay, that's how they do it in subtle ways like that. He was mocking. All right, so he did that one other time the same day, and so John snapped at him and said, "Look, I'm not a lady." So and he was probably a little startled, but it didn't last long. Okay, and he could have laughed or whatever. And they'll do that if he laughed my guess is it's probably that nervous laugh that they always have when they know they just screwed up. All right, or they stepped on your toes or whatever. All right, so and now where the abuser had left for a few hours, and before he left, all right, here y'all, this is another red flag. All right, it's just the way that the way they use cognitive dissonance against their targets all the time. All right, so after he left, the abuser tells John, said, I'm going to the gym, so if anyone calls and asks for me, be sure to take down a message of who called. You can tell them I'm at the gym and we'll return their call later or something like that. Okay, so okay, yeah, and that's not only trying to control that, and he instead of asking John if he would just take a message and let him know, do you see how he's trying to force some of that control? How he just trying to be bossy? Okay, that's what he was doing right there. And yes, the first phone call. Okay, okay, that first phone call way back when I called him on his radio voice a month prior, the first words out of his mouth to me were, John, you are an excellent communicator. Okay, so now, see, this abuser had already told John that he was an excellent communicator before this incident. All right, this is how they flip flop. All right, so an hour after he left, after telling John that he was going to the gym, the phone did ring and someone asked for the abuser. And John asked who it was, can I take a message, all that. And they did not state their name or that they would try back later, and they didn't give them their name or a message. And actually, okay, and it sort of sounded like his voice. Okay, see, that's the thing. You start to pick up on that when you converse with a narcissistic abuser. How it's also how you learn, yeah, and how they try to alter stuff, but you can still tell it's them. Yeah, a different pitch. Yeah, it was. And here we're getting to that where the abuser comes back and confirms that. All right, so that evening, the abuser also asked John questions about his interest, okay, like where he's from, and so all of that. And so John asked him the same, right? See, this is how it works with narcissistic abusers. They will ask you all the questions, right, to get as much information about you as they can. But then when you turn around like a civil person would do and ask where you're from, okay, he said, well, he's from, the abuser said something like from here, there, XYZ, and well, I'm just from everywhere. And so asking him some basic questions like where you are from, what are your interests? He also made a comment like, this is it, wait for it. Why do you ask so many questions like that? You seem to need to know things. Are you paranoid or something? That's classic. Okay. See how John would just be trying to have that a normal conversation because the abuser was asking John these questions, so John was just turning around asking the abusers like a two-way thing, but not when it comes to narcissistic abusers. So right there, he told on himself. All right, because you were doing no, it's like you told him you were just getting to know someone like any normal person. And then of course you realize by now that this guy was anything but normal, okay? As and John even told him to say these are pretty normal, basic, standard questions any new person would ask someone new they just met, just trying to get to know someone a little bit. And John, you're right about that. Okay, that's exactly right. That's a typical conversation, but his response just told us right there that he himself is paranoid. All right, but see, it's okay for the abuser to ask all those questions, okay, but not okay for the other person to turn around and ask. See, yeah, no, something's off there, right? So all of this, all right, y'all, brace yourself because all of this stuff occurred that very first day, okay? And that very first evening of even meeting this person, all of those little subtle red flags started to pop out. So John said that first night, it was August, it was very hot, so he ended up sleeping with all of his clothes on. Yeah, I get you. Yep, because you were feeling that vibe, and it's just he had just accused you not too, prior to that of being paranoid, so that kind of planted a subliminal message in your head. That's the other reason they do it. I just want y'all to know that. Whenever they accuse you of being what you know you're originally not, it plants that seed back there. So it kind of did get you a little bit anxious, so to speak, on what he might do while you sleep. We get that. We get that. Okay. But that's what they do. And that's what he wanted. Okay. And no doubt about it. Okay. All right. So the next morning, when they all wake up, all right, and right, he didn't try to do anything, but hey, he planted the seed. All right. So the first thing he asked, the abuser, that is, first thing he said, "Good morning, John. So did anyone call for me while I was out yesterday?" And so John told him, "Yeah, in fact, it's really weird." And then he goes on to describe that, they didn't leave a name, a number, or a message or anything. And the abuser looked at him and said, "We don't, can't recall exact words, but that's okay. It's all about just remembering the detail, the most important detail." Okay. And so the abuser asked, all right, why he didn't take a message. But John pointed out that he thought the voice sounded like the abuser. All right. He said the voice sounded almost like it could be you. Was that you? Okay. That was John asked the abuser that. And the abuser said, "Yes, it was me. I was testing you and you failed," like in all caps. Okay. That's it. There you go. And so John replied, said, "Yeah, I guess I know I must have failed miserably, but how did I fail?" And the abuser said, "I specifically told you that if someone calls and asks for me, you are to take a message, and you did not. Therefore, you failed." Right? Same guy, absolutely the same guy whose first words were to tell John he was an excellent communicator. Flip flop, cognitive dissonance. All right. So anyhow, John tells the abuser, he said, "You or not, you or not the person ever told who they were, didn't leave a message, and so they would call and said they would call back later anyway. So there was no message to give you." And so the abuser looked at John straight in the eye and said, "No, you were to write down a message on a piece of paper. Say, so, abuser, someone called, didn't leave a name or message, and said they will call back." It was wow, wow, wow. Okay, and he was trying really, really, really hard to get you to feel guilty because somehow, you didn't live up to this abuser's expectation. Okay, so because, when the person didn't leave a name, number, or any message, all right, okay, you didn't have anything really, right? So that's that. It's just, and especially if the person said they're going to call back later, then it's like, well, okay, there's no reason to say anything if they're going to call back, right? That's logic. Okay, so then here we go, y'all. The abuser asked John, said, "Have you been to church?" And John at that time had said no. And the abuser said, "I need to introduce you to Jesus." And John, your thought on that was correct, 100%. So John was thinking, "Oh, well, this is definitely the last human on earth I would go to introduce me to God or Jesus. Are you kidding me?" Yeah, good thinking. All right. So, but that was all within the first 24 hours. Okay, everyone, that's enough to send anybody's head spinning for sure. All right, but definitely, there was yeah, that funny feeling. You was spot on. Yeah, he said, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's just one of many things. And it's funny. I really find it really funny that he even admitted he was testing you. That was interesting right there. I did. But see, when we consider the age, a lot of times during, when they're younger, and as they get older, you have to be paying closer attention for them to admit stuff, because they still do. They'll let it slip every once in a while, but when they're a little bit younger, remember, they're still not well groomed in their craft just yet. So yeah, what I'm saying, because as they get older, they stop letting the target know they're being tested. All right, that's one thing that's different. All right. All right, so let's go to the next day. All right. Okay, so John had already planned to go to a friend, okay, to other friend place that he had made over the past few years, and at an apartment dinner for that second day. And it was the day before he was going back for Labor Day weekend. And so John was telling his friends about this weird roommate, okay, and they 100% insisted that John stay with them at their place that night, and call the school and get a different room, because they even knew, okay, they were, and they didn't want to interfere, but they both said, oh no, John, we're not allowing you to be subjugated to that. Believe us, you're a good friend, and if we allow you to go back to that room, we could never forgive ourselves. And you were very fortunate, because they when you told them the thing about this guy, they picked up on it. That's the thing, they picked up on it, because it was so they wanted to, they were trying to, they wanted to help you out, and that was really good of them, okay. And so it's yeah, that's very blessed, that's good. And so John he stayed there for the night. Okay, so and I'm gonna leave the next part out, though, because I do find the humor in it. But yeah, they might have had some pet rats. But hey, that was a much safer place to be than in that dorm room with that narcissistic abuser, without a doubt. Okay, all right, and so yeah. Okay, yeah, more comfy having the rats around than spend another night in the room with this abuser. Absolutely. So, and then his friend also. Now we're going to come to, what did the abuser do to the voicemail? Remember in the very beginning when John and his family were taken off to go on that vacation? Okay, on that trip. All right. Yes, that this abuser wanted to leave, or, have the voicemail message. So he wanted to set it up. Okay. And so his friend apparently have called, and they heard the message. And so they let John know. It was quite disturbing. Okay. Very disturbing. And at first, so when John first listened to it, he wasn't, really paying that much attention to the lyrics and things like that. And so John asked his friend, he said, well, wasn't it kind of funny? And so you had to go back in your mind, right? So you got back to the room and you heard the outgoing message. You didn't pay much attention to the word. You just heard the singing some message to the tune of Dixie. And at the end, leave a message for the abuser or John. All right. So then after you listen to it, after John listened to it several more times and then realized it was disturbing. All right. So here what he remembered it going something like, okay. And we're talking about a message that people hear when they call and get the answer machine. Okay. That this abuser did. He said, all right, well, that, part of it. Okay. The ending part is, I wish I was not fated to be so aberrated. Oh, I wish I were not mated to this lovely state. How sad it is to be at my room at my mom and dad. Oh, how sad it is to be at my mom and dad. I wish I were not crazy. Hooray, hooray. I wish my mind were less inclined to be that kind of hazy. Leave a message for him or John. Okay, yes, very strange indeed. Very strange. Okay, so literally him talking about how insane he is. That's exactly what he was doing. He was singing it. Okay, that should, ooh, wow. That's even creepier. Okay, so he was singing about it. Now, may I ask you, John, was it like a cheerful type of singing, like he was happy about his own crazy stuff? Oh, he was okay. Wish he were not mad at his mom and dad. Okay, okay. Alright, well, right. Okay. So, I mean, because if he was singing it, almost making light of it, that is very creepy indeed. It's like he was admitting that he liked a demon spirit. That's basically what that was. So, wow. Yeah. Okay, so next, John goes goes home, and the school puts him in another dorm room for a day, temporary, alright, and then they got John his own room, okay, in a separate building, alright, so the school did help him out, absolutely, so, uh, and so you had this, and then they ended up having the school like putting security on the information so that no one at the desk of the other dorm was allowed to tell the abuser where John was, and that the school information was not allowed to reveal it. So they put yep, and so they put a red flag on his name regarding access to the information. And it's unfortunate, but sometimes that's what happens when you run into abusers like that, is that you end up to protect yourself and your information stuff while you're getting your degree or whatever it is you're doing and things like that. It's just one of those things. So yeah, okay, and we'll share a little extra here where that after a few years later, putting that kind of, so this is a heads up for anyone who may have to put a security block or something on their school information because of such behavior, okay, from a fellow colleague, classmate, or whatever. You just know you're dealing with a very sadistic human being, okay? Um, so when you know that and you have to do it, you want to try to remember that once you graduate and you are off campus and you are away from there, that you remove that red flag. Because here's what John found out later was it bit him in the butt because he had several job interviews and he didn't land like 60 of them. He didn't land one job. And so John's mom figured out that, because they couldn't access the school records because he froze, and then his mom told him, say, remember how we froze them because of that nutcase a few years ago? And that would be exactly why, because a lot of employers, especially if they're looking for very specific qualifications based on your education, things like that, they do want to pull up your school records. So that's just a heads up to you all, that if you are in school and you had to put a red flag on your stuff because of a narcissistic abuser, just make mental note once you graduate and you're out, before you start going on job interviews and things like that, or before you even fill out the application and send in your resume, have that flag removed, okay? Because you'll be long gone. So there won't be anything, you know what I'm saying, like your location, stuff like that. But that way, potential employer can access your school information. All right. So there's just a little tip. So we want to thank John for sharing that, because it's a great tip to have going forward, so that people, we don't want anyone else to get bit in the butt. So, so we're talking about the voice message sounding kind of cheerful. Okay, yeah, see, that's definitely something off. So, all right, so things got better for John after that, and when he saw the abuser pass by only 1 or 2 times that entire semester, and you learn how to ignore them, and that's exactly what you do. So, and then one time he happened to be in the place where you was sitting at the student union eating, and the abuser got across from John and said, "We need to talk like adults." John said no and got up and left. Good job. Good job. That's how you handle that, because it's like, I mean, I can imagine the tone when he said, "Look, we need to talk like adults." He was trying to be bossy, or like having like parenting, trying to act like he's parenting you, so to speak. Like what? Yeah. So, and when John said he believed that this guy was the most psychotic of any of the people who have ever affected him, but yeah, well, maybe one of them, okay? Because the one story where you were talking about your friend that moved, the the girlfriend who tried to triangulate you, she was right in line with this psycho right here. Okay. Oh my gosh. All right. Cause yes, I know she also, we'll see if we get to that story today. But again, she's right in line with, but it's just, she's the female version of this dude right here. All right. Seriously. And, and here's the thing, after John got out of that and was able to have conversations with others who knew who this guy was, and they all, um, other students had a theory that he escaped from the mental institution a couple miles away from campus. You know? Hmm. Okay, or maybe they ran an experiment to see how he would do in the environment. Good one. All right, but not sure. Although one of the nurses from the dorm said she knew him. He says super smart, especially in psychology, in his psychology degree, but odd. Okay, see, even other people had picked up that this guy was odd. So John wasn't alone, and that's a good thing. Okay, that John was not alone at being able to pick up some weird vibes and things like that. So okay, so and John says there's one caveat, and always something that we are attracted to. And so John's initial thought was having this older, experienced person, maybe it will help me find dates with this knowledge and other things I can learn from someone older. And that's perfectly natural in the younger mind, when you are around. Okay, it's not a nurse, it was the dorm floor leader, and they call them RNs. Oh, I got you. Okay. All right. So I stand corrected. Thank you, John. Thank you. Okay. So it was the dorm floor leader. Okay. All right. Yes. And we're gonna wrap this up. All right. So, okay. Initial thought was having, however, that was before John met the guy. So in your mind, you were doing the normal process and thing. They're like, hey, well, someone older I might learn something from. And that's a normal thought process. So, and John was pretty much terrified of him from within the first few hours of meeting him. Yep, exactly. Because you picked up on all those vibes. So let's see. All right, let's see what else John got to add here. All right. The weird thing was John got a job in degree right out of college, but a few years later, that's when you had the issue. Maybe because I just graduated, but either way, yeah, I should have. Well, it's all good. It's all good. We can't beat ourselves up later. It was fixable, right? It was totally fixable for later on. So that meaning of it coming to me. I know what they're called. But I can't pull it to the forefront myself right now either. But they are called RN on the dorm floor leaders and stuff like that. So, but anyhow, but yeah. So John wasn't alone in that story, and I'll tell you, yes, all right, and those are red flags that you pick up on pretty early on, and anytime you get that, you can sense that weird vibe. But I was sensing just from, I'll go ahead and share your the analysis, okay, that I got from it also was just the way that he was responding. And when you kind of can remember the tones and how they said it, and probably even remember the facial expressions they had when they said them, all those little cues and things like that give off that they're not who they're trying to pretend to be. And so he was definitely, in that story, he was definitely trying to figure out, if you had any boundaries. He was trying to figure out, what he could mirror from you. Okay, he was trying to figure out. He was trying to figure out how he could further love bomb. Okay, let's face this, because that telling you were an excellent communicator was one way of him love bombing you. Okay, so, but he didn't have any other data. He didn't have enough information about you, okay, your likes, okay, especially your likes, things like that he could further love bomb you with. So what ended up happening is he went quickly into the devaluing stage. And that devalue, because he wasn't getting any information useful. Okay, let's put it that way. He wasn't getting any useful information from you, okay, that would give him some fuel so he could continue to love bomb, trying to lure you in. All right, because you were very, very good at not giving out any useful information to him, and so he went right to the devalue. And that's what the whole ladies first, when you both of you will walk through those, that's what that was. That was also a devaluing statement. All right, so yeah, went around, back and forth. And then the whole taking a message thing, test or whatever, when he did that and then, said you failed, that was also a devaluing tactic, okay, as well, because it's trying to make you feel guilty for not following his commands, following his orders. It's also part of that. He was trying to see how much control he could get over you. All right, that's all part of it right there. So all in all, just within that 24 hours, he did a ton of it. He threw a lot of it at you. And that's another thing that always will throw people off as to how fast they come in and try to do that. That always makes a person go, wait a minute, what's wrong with this picture? All right, so definitely a lot of red flags in there. And as always, anybody who catches this on the replay, if you've got some additional things that you were able to pick up on out of that story, share those in the comments so that others can learn as well. That's what it's all about. It's that learning from each other so others can recognize and spot the red flags a lot quicker, to help them so they don't get sucked into another abusive situation. All right, that's a really big part of it right there. Oh, that's the thing, John. Many of God's chosen empaths have very good memories. Yes. Okay, we have very good memories, but mostly for the most important details like that. All right, so that's what I'm saying, because going forward, God needs us to remember those little things so that we don't get tripped up again and again and again and again. After he wakes us up and we get into his reality, he needs us to stay that vigilant and aware, okay, all the time. And so that's why he helps us remember the important parts of things to watch out for going forward, because they're out there. Okay, there's more like this person out there. All right, there's a lot more. So God is the one that retained a lot of that, okay, for us, so that when the time came, it's very similar to how when Jesus said, it's like, I'll be with you for a little while and I'll go away. We have to learn that when he goes, he's like, he doesn't ever really feel, he doesn't go away completely. All right. He's always with us in spirit. Of course, we don't realize that or really know that until later. Okay, we figure that out later on God's time always. But it's kind of similar to that, how he's like, all right, I gotta go away, because he goes away and then we go through the trials and tribulations, because we had to learn from them, we had to learn about them. All right, and because that's all part of God's preparation for the spiritual battle and the spiritual awakening. All right, all of that preparation, so that we can have that discernment that he needs his chosen empaths. Remember, chosen empaths are soldiers for God. So, just like everything, we were being trained, we were being trained by God because we're his soldiers. And so he had all that preparation we had to go through. We can look at a lot of those events of narcissistic abuse, so to speak. We can look at all of those as boot camps, if you will. So there's one way to look at it, to kind of help change that thinking to a more positive perspective, okay, more positive way. Better yet, because that way you'll say, that it was horrible, and again, that's why God woke us up. It's like, okay, we've seen enough. And he wakes us up when he knows we're ready for the next phase, the next stage, the next season, what have you. So John says, but yeah, okay. And for that story, yeah, that is exactly the biggest mistake that he made, which I think you were picking up on it anyway. But yeah, a lot of people were able to pick up on it pretty quick because of that vibe, that spiritual energy. But it's that warp speed, that really quick speed that they move at. And some of them do it again like that when they get older. Okay, remember I have a video where I shared a specific case study who was much older, but tried to move just as fast as this guy did in his late 20s. Big difference. But some of them are, a lot of them are like that. And so, because remember, the enemy knows his time is running short. He knows his time is short. So he has to move really fast to try to get that person, trauma bonded to them. All right, that's what it's all about. He was trying to trauma bond you to him. That's the bottom line right there. And we're all grateful that did not happen. Okay, so we're gonna move on to story number 2. All right, because this was someone else that, yeah, and we're gonna see how much of it we get through today because I'm watching the time, everyone. But we want to go ahead and let's see. Because, yeah, this one's very classic also, everyone. All right, because we learn later that older narcissistic abusers often like to surround themselves with younger people. Yes, remember the narcissistic ex-psychopath roommate that was 30 years older than myself? There you go. They all do it. And of course, we don't realize this until much later. All right, that's the big thing right there. We don't realize this, but this next story, where John was able to pick up on, wait, something off with this guy. All right, and I'm going to leave certain details out because not really all. We're just going to focus on what the red flags are. Okay, so the second one, all right, you had to walk away from. You had 2 separate stints with him. So what we're going to do is see how far we get through the first event that you had with this person. And then I always make a note to where we, pick up where we left off, because we definitely, yeah. Okay. All right. So this both, okay, so this is both before and after some others. Okay, as always, I mean, there's always those in-between events. Yes, unfortunately. All right, so now John has graduated from college in 1997. Now he's 22. Okay, so, and there was this other guy during college. Another friend had taken John to some events hosted by an organization for younger people, and it was called, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but it had a name. It was designed for people primarily in the age group of 18 to 25 for the most part. Okay, because there's organizations that have different events and just thing for certain age groups, because it's that age appropriate thing, so to speak. So that's that. So, all right. So there were events, okay, right? All right. Although there may have sometimes been people that might linger a little bit till age 26 to 30, but not too many. Yeah. All right. And then there's another division, the young adult division, designed for 25 to 40-year-olds. Okay. And sometimes with that, you might get people coming up to the age 45, 50, but very few in between that. All right. So they all go for, specific things that are, again, whatever considered age appropriate for the age group. Okay. All right. So you're 22, and there was this guy that was, seemed like a really nice guy. And of course, narcissistic abusers always seem nice at first. All right. Seemed like a nice guy, ran a business, seemed to know a lot of people, was super intelligent. Over time, you found out he was involved with some local politics in the area, okay? But what drew John in, being fresh out of college, that he seemed like a guy who might be a great person to help John grow, make business connections, all those things that, we think about at that stage of life. And we're trying to still figure out what are we going to do, kind of, and also it's like, don't know our purpose yet, right? Not a lot of time. Now, some people do know their purpose that early, but some of us didn't until much later. Okay, so it's just the way. Remember, it's always on God's timing. That's the thing. That's what's beautiful about it. But so how to get jobs, and so he was okay. So this guy was about 42, 43. So again, it's that mentality of, hey, me, because we're when we're younger, it's like, yes, that's why when we get older, we realize we got to be very careful who we are. But when we're younger and we're still trying to figure things out, stuff like that. So it's that mentality, and that's a natural thing to have, because you're looking at this person like, oh, okay, you know what? I can learn something. Maybe I can learn something from this person. Again, another one of those. All right. So now, strangely, you did immediately think it odd that he was 42 or 43, still attending the events for the 18 to 25-year-old. That's a good observation right there. Okay, that's a very good observation, because if they had age-specific events for different groups, now it's one thing if he was um, maybe trying to promote his business or whatever, then yeah, that would make, hand out business cards, but then go back to the event that's age appropriate for, the group that age appropriate for him. You would think. But John instinct told him probably looking for a younger woman. You're right about that. Definitely. All right. And he was, let alone. So it pretty much was a little, if he was lingering, okay, and not just simply trying to do business, then yes, that would definitely a first red flag right there. All right. And he didn't, right, he didn't do anything wrong, but no, he was scoping, because remember, narcissistic abusers, they know that when people get older, people are going to start catching on to them. So what he was doing was he was hanging around the younger group, because he was preying on naivete. All right, that's what these narcissistic abusers do. They prey on those who are still young and still a little, because look, we're all very naive, all right, in our younger years, we are. And so that's why, okay. And yes, also to probably, hopefully, pick up a young woman or something, definitely. All right, no doubt about that. And, but he was looking for, younger, naive prey that he could lure in, okay, and get to that, try to trauma bond to him, all right, because it most likely the people in the, what was it, the in his age group probably wouldn't fall for it. That's just, it is, okay. So now some might, but that's why. All right, so John and this guy became friendly, did a few things here and there, nothing out of the ordinary. But the first time John went to visit him at his house, okay, at his first house before he moved, the weird guy, he was telling John about his local political office and how nobody liked him, and because he wasn't inside enough, and made it sound like his opponent sabotaged him, okay, maybe even drugged him or other such thing. It's not like, right, it's not like he was running for president or whatever. Well, that that's where they get all of these ideas that their campaigns or whatever have been sabotaged. They get it from watching it happen to other political campaigns. That's why a lot of us don't play that game anymore. Like, we're done. Anyway, so, but that was him in a way trying to play victim. Okay, he had made a bunch of stuff up in his head, and that he got from TV and elsewhere, and so he was trying to tug at your heartstring. He was trying to make you feel sorry for him, for absolutely no reason. But anyway, so this is like whatever he was doing was running for something where there would only be, okay, small town voting. Okay, I gotcha. For whatever reason, right? It's not the type of office where people would resort to such length. You're right about that. You're right. Okay, and then he also made it sound like his ex-wife was a mental nutcase. Ding, 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 ding. Who possibly put another former place of his on fire. Oh, yes. Okay, I remember what when that went through my mind, okay, because that's the one thing that a lot of narcissistic abusers will do, and they not only accuse their ex of being crazy, but they also will make up stuff like they, that in their mind that tried to burn the house down or some building or something like that. They always, oh gosh, in some way, shape, or form will always come up with some storyline like that. Wow. Yes, very classic. Okay. And then he also tried to accuse the ex-wife and of stealing albums and ripping them up. Okay, and then this person has a son, only child, one son that's living with the mom, but not him. See, you were picking up on the clues right there. You're like, wait a second. If this woman's such a nutcase, then why is the son choosing to live with her and not the father? Very good catch. All right, very good catch. So, yeah. So John asked himself, wait a minute. So she did all this crazy stuff, but the son wants to stay with her and not the dad. Okay. But all right, we don't know her side of the story. It's just what he was just giving you his side of the story, basically. That's it. Okay, so yeah, seeing more than one, right? Seeing already more than one. So John now knows more than one person or person. I don't know, all crazy and do crazy things. Sounds like the triangulation of some sort. Kind of. Yeah, kind of, sort of. Yep, that everyone else is crazy, but not him. That's exactly what he was trying to do. He's trying to paint the picture for you. Okay. Uh, okay, don't. Right, right, in the age group thing. That's right, John. That's right. Yeah, now you know why. There you go. Yep. Stay with her. Well, that's right, John. That's right. That if this woman really was as crazy as this person was trying to make her out to be, the court system definitely would not have let her have the custody. Absolutely right. Because they would have done their investigation and all of that. So yes, you're right. So that was a good observation right there. Like, hold on a second. All right, but he was definitely trying to paint that picture for you that it's everybody else, right? He was trying to paint himself as being the, not just victim, but just paint himself out to be the good guy. Okay, he needs to do that, right? Yeah, like all narcissistic abusers do. And he needs to always make their target think, because believe it or not, once you started being friendly, he figured he had a good target, so he was going to see what he could, get away with. That's a lot of it right there. So, but John says that something always felt off about this guy, and we're still talking about the 42 to 43-year-old that hanging around the younger group instead of the group that he's anyway. All right, so. Right, something was always off, okay? And then eventually it just kind of faded away. So that's what happened a lot of times, okay? Because that's how it does that. It faded away because there was some additional lesson that John had to learn from this particular experience also. All right, we always want to keep that in mind. It faded away because here's what happens is that the more that we ignore the intuition, the more that we ignore it, it does fade away. Okay, it does fade away. But the good thing is now we know that it comes back. And when it comes back, ooh, it comes back and it hits harder. It's like when it comes back, when God wakes us up, and the Holy Spirit just washes over, it's like, oh my goodness. Yes, because then you get around somebody and it's like that radar and there's just screams really loud. So that's the good news, that even though it fades away early on, we can learn some things, and then when it comes back, like, okay, we're listening now, right? Yeah, but that was a natural part of the process there. All right, so, and John didn't really want much to do, so honestly, but he just didn't feel that good about being that guy's friend. Okay, so it was still there, but it was just not, it just wasn't loud enough, so to speak. All right, and So 6 to 7 years after seeing him every once in a while, over 3 to 5 years the first time, and a 6-year hiatus. Okay, John sees him at a restaurant, and says hi, and this guy gives him a business card. So at the time, John was starting a new thing and was interesting, but more direct sales and energy, and stuff that didn't require recruiting people. So he seemed, with the fact he ran his business, and it seemed like the type of guy that was good at that and open-minded about such things. So either someone to partner with as getting a match, or possibly him making business connections with John as to get quotes and stuff like that. Okay, so you're looking at it from a business partner kind of perspective, and that's nothing wrong with that. But even but for John, even so, he kept looking at that, thinking, should I, shouldn't I shouldn't. And it was like walking through quicksand. Yes, it oftentimes is, when that lure, it's like trying to lure you in. Okay. Hi, sunshine. Yes, nice to see you. Yes, God bless to you too as well. But we're covering the story. All right, so that's where you were back and forth thinking, yes, you should. It's like your intuition was trying to tell you that, and it will feel like quicksand, yeah, because you're trying to pull away, but this guy was trying to, lure you back in. So it is very strong sometimes. Yes, it is. So, but John went ahead and made the call anyway and reconnected, and what a mistake that was. Well, you know what? Lesson learned, right? Okay, and so he was pretty good again, mostly, okay, as they always are. See, the first time you met him and stuff like that, and he was giving you all of this story about how his exes were crazy, everybody else was out to get him, and all of that, and stuff like that. Once that wore off, okay, and then he had a little bit of time in there where you two didn't interact, so he was kind of hoping that you would put all that away and forgotten about it and stuff like that. So of course he's going to be nice. Okay, of course he's going to be nice this time around. All right. So he even became John's customer. See, subtle love bomb right there. All right. So yeah. Okay. Because you came back, right? So he's thinking, oh, I got another chance. So he does this because you were discussing business deals, right? So now he knows what your, I wouldn't necessarily say desire was, but what your goals were, right? Okay, so he was playing on that. Okay, so the small amount he used to give, whatever, right? And he didn't have the interest. I thought, okay, but he didn't have the interest John thought he might. Okay, so John said he probably saw that and utilized it exactly like I just said. He saw that and utilized your goals and just that, right, to lure you back in. Okay, that is what they do. Absolutely. This is the other reason why we often say it's very, very, very important to always watch. Because once you had kind of identified that something was off with him anyway, right? And so but you didn't know that then. We do now. So when you identify someone like that going forward, we know to zip it until we could do what we're dealing with. A lot of time, we don't want to reveal that because they'll do that. Yeah, exactly that. So, all right. Okay, so this guy, all right, so John and this guy have reconnected after so many years. All right, so this guy seemed to have this insane obsessiveness over old artifacts. Well, I mean, everybody's got to have a hobby, right? You would think. I mean, we all do, but there is a difference between just having a regular hobby and then being obsessive over stuff. But it turned out that guy's small condo on the lake, okay, he turned it into a literal museum, and wow, okay, spent a large amount of money over time collecting and buying these artifacts, okay, like some copies or originals of something like from Einstein or Thomas Edison wrote, stuff like historical stuff like that. Yeah, okay. Various articles and stuff. But he kind of overdid it a bit. Yeah. Okay. That if he turned his entire yeah, they're remember narcissistic abusers and they don't have limitation. They don't know when enough is enough. Right, and that's a lot of what you were seeing right there, was if he had more than what in any sane person's mind would consider, hey, you need space for this also, you need space for that also. Most people would have a designated spot where they would put, knickknacks or artifacts, whatever, or a whole separate room or whatever, because I mean, obviously you gotta have room for other things, but narcissistic abusers, for them, nothing is ever enough. All right, just keep that in mind. Never forget that there's never enough. So in a sense, it does come on. Yeah, they are obsessed with it. All right, they are very much obsessed. All right, so that was a good observation there also. All right, so this guy never really asked John or got John to spend any money on him at all. Which some of them are pretty clever like that. And so John said he had the same feeling like the neighbor. Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, like your current the most recent story about your psycho neighbor. Yes, psycho. Okay. Right. And so John points out that this guy seemed very needy, very controlling, and very authoritative. There you go, your red flags right there. All right. If they're coming off as being too needy, yep, very controlling and very authoritative, they come off those three things right there. Or you watch out, especially, I mean, gosh almighty, if they have no position to be that way. You know what I'm saying? Like now, like a law enforcement officer, yes, they'll come off as authoritative when necessary. Okay. So they have that's their position. Okay. That's that. But this guy was not. You know what I'm saying? He was not in any position to be coming off that way. So that's always something to pay attention to, and always, again, that discernment. So yeah. Oh, that's true. John points out that your psycho neighbor doesn't really have the authoritative trait. Yeah, no, not so much. Not all psychos will. Uh, so at least not noticeable. Maybe not in public, but and then the voice of this person. John noticed that this voice. Well, that eh, neither here or there on that as far as the red flag. The red flag in a vocal sense would be like what we talked about early on in the stream, is that it would be it's just more about paying attention to tone shifts and tone changes and what they say when they say it, especially in a gaslight. Absolutely. And so that would be that. All right. So John says this guy did buy and take John to a hockey game, which was not something you get to do, so it's pretty nice. Subtle love bombs. He had me. All right, so he had John come up and go on the boat on his lake. Sort of fun. Couple of football games. Just kind of typical things that two buddies would do, right? But John said it never felt like he really wanted to go that bad. But somehow this guy had lured you in and decided that he just persuaded you. And that's how they do it. We don't even, a lot of times we don't even realize that it's happening, but he persuaded you to go along anyway. Okay. Even though, I mean, whether or not you told him you wanted to go or what you were into or whatever, that's how they do it. All right. So yeah, that oftentimes, so there will be a red flag out of that. Is anytime they're like pushing or even just being kind of somewhat cordial about the persuasion, try and get you to go and do a certain thing that you're not really, it's not resonating with your spirit. Okay. Anytime someone's trying to pull you off to go get you involved in something that's just not resonating, you don't really want to do it. It doesn't resonate with your spirit. But somehow that they're trying to get you to override that intuition. There's your red flag right there, because they always try to do that. It's always about distracting you and trying to get you off of that very classic right there. All right. And so John also noticed that John was thinking if he cut him out of all those years Then John had a reason. Yeah. He started remembering, wait, I had cut this guy out. I cut him off for so many years. There had to be a reason. So once, yep. And once the guy came back, it was great at first for a bit, then just got overwhelming. Okay, so it got overwhelming with trying to get, taking you to these events and things like that. And the love bombing started to speed up a little bit. That's what, okay, yeah. So being 18 years older than John found it odd that he had a son he didn't see much. And I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all something, that a lot of narcissistic abusers do eventually, even if they get custody of their kid, at some point they do become estranged from them, right? A lot of times, because especially if the kids start to pick up on the fact that they are a narcissistic abuser, they will always, the kids will cut them off. Oh yes, that's something to look forward to for any of you out there who may be going through that ugly, situation, okay, and that you have shared custody or whatever with the narcissistic abuser got custody and you don't. Okay, just that's why we always say hang in there and keep praying, stay prayed up, because if their children are younger, just give it time, because I will also share with you that in this story here, the guy's son did pick up on it, and that's why he chose to be with his mom instead of the dad, because this son already knew. All right, so there's your hope, everyone. All right, and then also for the ex-psychopath roommate, all right, that I talk about in our latest book, Real Events in Narcissistic Abuse. I didn't mention this in detail, but he did have two sons who were estranged, okay, from him. They never called him. They would not, they would come to family gatherings, and I only met them like, well, one of them I had just met a couple of times, a couple different events, and the father-son relationship was not there. I will tell you that. But the son was there because the mom was there. So just, keep that in mind. And so, right. All right. So we're going to go back to this real quick, that this guy had a son. He didn't see much since his son was 10 years old. But the guy was telling John that he was trying to, rebuild a relationship with his son, but there were the action didn't match words kind of thing. All right. So there you go. All right. So now at this time, his son being in his early 20s and college graduate with honors. Okay. His only heir, the guy was super obsessed over his will. Okay. And what to do, how to do it. He wrote it himself, and almost everything was going to his son except for all the artifact, museum stuff he would want in a museum. But his son was going to get his car. He kept talking about how brilliant his son was and trying to claim he was building a relationship with him, but then turned around and complained that it was taking forever. And yet he is making other people the executor of a handwritten will that everything is going to him anyway, pretty much, and doesn't trust him with it. Yeah, interesting, right? So trusting, okay. So John thought, dude, maybe try trusting your MIT brilliant son, who is an adult, to handle this thing. I bet he isn't happy about not being trusted with it. That would be a good guess. Well, that's it's not so much that, it's he was hiding the truth that his son already knew, and his son didn't really want anything to do with him. Okay, so and we're about to get to that. All right. And so John said the guy was rather morbid. Okay, everyone, here's your red flag out of this one, is that we find out that a lot of narcissistic abusers are obsessed with death. Okay, they are very much obsessed with it, okay, and very afraid of it. They are. They're always, I mean, it's part of that dark world they live in. All right. This is why we can see that narcissistic abusers are the dead who walk among us. They're not living. You know what I'm saying? They're just, ugh. But yeah. And so John said he was pulling away slowly. Now that's the other thing. All right, that they can sense when their targets are pulling away also. All right, so, and he did, yes, so John realized that he recognized that. So one day, the guy brought up his will as his friend, okay, brought up the will as his friend he knew for 30 plus years was having cancer and dying in a few months. He brought this up and asked, okay, so now this guy is asking John to do the will. Okay. All right. Oh, yes, that is true, John. That obsession with the artifact that we just covered with this guy is very much like your neighbor's obsession with the walking and spot on. See, you're connecting dots. This is what it's all about. It's what it's all about during the healing and spiritual awakening, connecting dots. So that going forward, it's like, okay, and yeah, and see the similarity across. Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. Okay. All right. So this person asked John to take over writing the, doing the will and things like that. Okay. It was just something simple. And John did say he was very hesitant, didn't really want to do it, but he said, okay, but the guy said he was writing it himself, and it was just something simple, a couple pages, everything goes to his son, a couple. So yeah, that convinced John, okay, well, I can do this. Geez, I mean, honestly, really didn't want to, but the guy pushed and pushed, okay, until that's it. There you go, John. The guy pushed and pushed until he put that sense of obligation into you. Okay, so there you go. Exactly. That's exactly what he did. That's when they use that pushing, okay, to get you to do something you don't really want to do, that manipulation with the pushy. Yep, that's all to make to trip you up and make you feel obligated to them. See, there's that demon of obligation. Tricky one. Yep, to watch out for. So he definitely did use that. He certainly did. Absolutely, John. That's right. He did use that to as a way to try to make sure you will stay around, make sure you'll stay in his life. Absolutely. Yep. So now, okay, so now John's responsible for the will and testament. And so, all right. All right, but he got together with John to go over it. He never, okay, wait a minute. He got together with you. John signed it, and it was and it was 15 pages long, all kinds of exact specific instructions on various things, oh my gosh. In fact, including, okay, yeah, including the fact that John would have to go to a specific funeral home first and do this, and oh, control. Yes, John, that's exactly what he did. He's trying to control everything. And I mean, understandably that it's his will, but it's wow. Yeah, there's that control written all over it, telling you exactly where it was gonna. It's like where this is gonna be, where this is gonna be, and where, and require that you be there and travel. And okay, yeah. And John shared that was completely insane. Yes, indeed, very much so. But that is, uh, because John reminds us he didn't want to do it, but this guy was pushing it, and so John went ahead and signed up for it, signed it, got on board with it and everything. Because that's what they'll do, you know, when they push like that and they get you to cave, it's just because they know that that's the only way that you'll be able to get them off your back about it, to stop pushing it. You know what I'm saying? That's classic right there. So, all right. And so this guy will call John once a month to make sure he go once a month to go over the will every page for oh, that is okay. When I read this first, I didn't catch that once a month part. Okay, 100% every page for over an hour. Wasting your time. There's the red flag right there. You're wasting your time. All right, and the guy kept talking about, well, one day he will die. That's exactly how they do it. Classic, classic. They all do that at some point, and they're very morbid about it. Absolutely. And it was a total bummer every time John spoke with him as every time he would bring this up for the first 20 to 45 minutes of the conversation. Here we go, everyone. This is where we learn the son knows all about it. So even one time when he got me in touch with his own son, his son's first words were, "My dad is morbid, isn't he?" There you go. And part of this was okay. Part of this, okay. And the guy told John that John was only one of only 2 or 3 people in his entire life circle that he could count on. Love bomb. Yep. That's why John said, yep, that tactic. Yep, absolutely. So there had gotten to a point where John started to act like a bit of a we're not, okay, look, we're not laughing at anyone here, but we're just laughing at the fact that sometimes this does happen. Sometimes we end up having to resort to, well, we don't have to now, but before we knew what was going on, a lot of times we got forced to act a little bit out of character to get out from under somebody that's trying to do that. Okay. And okay. All right, so got to a point where John started to act like a bit of a butthole and the guy got frustrated. He then started being like, well, if you can't call me every time I need you, this is not how you treat someone. I need someone I can count on for this will. I mean, gosh, see the obsession with this will. That's wow. That's crazy making. I mean, need someone to go over it every single month. I mean, once it's done, usually you give it to a lawyer and it just goes in there and then go back and change it if you need to later. But this guy wanted to go over it every single month, page by page. That is insane. Okay. All right, so the guy tells him he needs someone he can count on for his will. And so John said he was like, Eureka. And so over the next 2 to 3 times, John acted in a manner in which he figured he could not entrust me with it at all. And he said, the abuser said, I'm cutting you out of this. I have someone else that will do this. It is such a royal pain, and I hate this, but come by and sign the document to say you are not doing this. Good job, John, because you know what? You had to do what you had to do. And then so John said, went over there like I would go to the state lotto office if I had won the lot, if I had lottery winning to collect. He said he signed it and he was free. Well, there you go. And, it's an unfortunate circumstance, but you learned a lesson there, a lot of lesson in that one. But yeah, this person was definitely very much obsessed with death and his will and artifacts, stuff like that. So it was crazy making. But then there's just that one other little part, and then this story will be the one that we stop with today. But John also points out that it creeped him out that this man, 18 years older than him, despite knowing he was very much in the girl and younger women especially, again, there you go, right? but he kept saying on the phone every time, talking about how he thinks of me as a John, how he thinks of John as a son or stepson, and would say that he loved you at the end. Just a very sharp, quick one, not passionate, just weird, like creepy, in a weird way. Yep. And so, yes, thank goodness, John, you have not seen him since. There you go. That's absolutely. And so there you go, everyone. That that was definitely that was that was where those two stories in and of themselves are definitely full of red flags and all kinds of crazy making and things like that. Yeah, I know, John. I could tell you were very glad to get out of doing that will, because wow. That was insane, insane, completely insane. But I will go ahead and share real quick. And so we will cover a couple more stories in part two, but we're going to share another bit that kind of ties into this with the obsession with death, everyone, because that's exactly what narcissistic abusers, especially when they get older, all right, when they get older, they do become very much obsessed with it. And the ex-psycho roommate and some and his flying monkeys would do the exact same thing. They didn't necessarily obsess over a will, but they would make remarks and things like that, and make bets, and then say something like, well, if I'm still here when that happened, then so and so can collect, all little things like that. And then not only that, they would also obsess over the death of family. Okay, because that ex-psychopath roommate, oftentimes, because his sisters and brothers were older than him, and so he would often make references to, well, gotta get things ready for when so and so passes away. Gotta get that. I mean, all kinds of little things like that. And I was like, is that your responsibility? I was like, wow. But yes, it definitely is a very common red flag that you're dealing with not just a morbid person, but you're dealing with a narcissistic abuse and probably most likely a psycho. And then now, let's not forget that some younger one, okay, that come out, and if they ask somebody, kind of like that coworker did, said, Michelle, have you ever thought about killing anyone? And I was like, no, I don't have that kind of mindset. And so it just tells you, when people ask questions like that, that's a red flag that, hey, wait a minute, something's not right up here for that person, because why would you be asking me that? It's like that. No, that doesn't jive. And so you always got to be mindful and kind of, because most people, we all did it though. We all did it. Most people would just dismiss that as just somebody being curious or whatever. But when it comes down to dark things like that, okay, dark things like, evil behaviors and things like that, it makes, now we stop and go, hold on a second. Why did they ask that? We no longer let cognitive dissonance play a role in that. Was like, why? So there's your tip on that one. So always kind of part of that vigilance and awareness to, look out for. So let's give a big thank you to John for providing us with a lot of great stories to share for others to relate to help others connect dots. That's what, like I said earlier, that's what it's all about here, to help each other going forward, so that, we don't want to see any of y'all keep getting duped over and over and over again. And God does not want to see that happen to you anymore. I'm here to tell you, because, hey, he didn't wake you up for nothing. There you go. So it's all about just relearning, connecting those dots. And if any of y'all have something, if you're watching on the replay and you want to share something in the comments below about something from these two stories that helped you connect some dots, let's share that and let others learn from it too, because that's, again, what it's all about. I want to thank everyone for your time and yes, your continued support always. And we are going to cover, like I said a little bit ago, we'll cover probably hopefully the next 2 or 3 in that testimony in part 2, and we will converse back and forth and set the date and time for that. So we will let you all know when we're going to have that. It may be a couple of weeks from now, but we're going to, like I said, going to be a lot to unpack, but we want y'all to get the information and to be able to learn and digest it, and just to kind of add that to your discernment arsenal. Okay, the toolbox in the brain. All right, there you go. That's the best way that I could think to put it, right off the top of my head. But there you go. All right, everyone, sending love and light to all fellow warriors. Thank you for watching and for your support. Until next time, let's show some gratitude to Heavenly Father. You keep being you. In Jesus' name, amen.